welcome back to this channel. In this video, we are going to be talking about the reveal of Lady Loki, or female Loki, whatever you want to call her. And yeah, let's just jump right into it. I do have a few theories, specifically about whether or not this character is actually Loki or not. So I'm very excited to talk about that. So in the comic books, there have been female versions of Loki before. I believe she has just been Loki, but transformed into a female form for one reason or another. I'm not too sure. I'm not super familiar with that particular aspect of this character, right? But we've always seen female Loki with black hair, and that is getting me thinking maybe this is a mix of two different characters that we have in the comic books. Specifically, one that a lot of people might know from some of the cartoons that we used to watch when we were younger, and that would be Amora the Enchantress. And I think it would be really cool to see this version maybe just call herself the Enchantress, something like that. I think that would be a very cool introduction to this character, while also building up on some things that we know about from an existing character. That being said, I'm very curious about what her final goal actually is, because it's definitely not destroying. It can't just be destroying the sacred timeline. There has to be something more to it, because we're only on episode 2. Also, it's clearly not like taking over the TVA, stuff like that. Just doesn't seem like she wants to, because even when Loki brought it up, the Loki that we know, the variant, she says that she has no interest in that. So I definitely think that she's telling the truth in that instance, but I'm very curious to see where she goes in the future and exactly what the relationship's going to be between these two variants of Loki. Again, if this character does end up going by the Enchantress, I think that it would be really cool to bring back the Executioner in some way, shape, or form. Perhaps another variant of the Executioner could come about, or maybe we could just get the version that we saw in Thor Ragnarok, though I don't think that character would actually fit as a clear antagonist or villain, because typically the Executioner is the hand or the underling of the Enchantress. At least that's what it was in the cartoons, so I'm assuming that's probably semi-accurate to what it was in the actual comic books, but I'm not too sure about that. So I think the journey for episode 3 is really going to be with these two different variants of Loki, figuring out exactly who each other are, and I'm assuming that this specific version of Loki is from the Enchantress version, or the female lady version of Loki is from earlier in the timeline, because I think it would be very interesting to add this to actually have been a part of Loki's character in the past, so that at some point he I don't know, either was tricked, or Freya transformed him into a female, or whatever. I don't know, whatever it could be. For one reason or another, he became female Loki for a while. And that could be a cool addition to his, I think, 2,000 year history at this point. So I think it'd be really cool to add some more elements and sprinklings of what he was like, say, even 1,000 years ago. And that could also explain exactly why these two variations of Loki are so different, because Loki himself says that he understands and knows what this female version of himself is doing by body swapping. And it seems that our Loki might actually be capable of that. It's just he says that it's like a coward's tool, or something along those lines. And it's just something that he thinks is beyond himself, or something that a weaker person would do. And out of fear. That's what it seems to be his idea on that. With that being said, I do think it would also be cool to see our variant of Loki display similar types of abilities, and maybe also understand a bit more as to why magic and Infinity Stones and all these things don't work in the TVA. Is this outside of the timeline? What's going on there as well? That's something that I've been thinking about as well. Specifically, when the bombs go off all over the sacred timeline. There seems to be no bombs that actually take place or go into the TVA, which makes me think that that is probably because the TVA is somewhere outside of space-time. Though I could be wrong about that, it just kind of does make sense to me if you have beings that are watching over the timeline, that they themselves would be removed from it, because even when you talk to Mobius, it seems as though he's never been allowed to really explore the outside world, and that would only really make sense if the outside world is wholly separate from the TVA. Jumping back specifically with the introduction of this female version of Loki, I will say that I really enjoyed the fight sequence between our variant of Loki and this female variant of Loki. The way that she talks to him and the whole conversation with like that really forced smile between the two of them, the conversation with how female Loki does not actually like being referred to as Loki anymore. So I think that actually adds fuel to the idea that she might end up becoming the Enchantress, especially because she's using much more overt displays of magic than our iteration of Loki typically does. And in this fight, we get to see Loki, our Loki, fight against a bunch of different characters, and it was a very cool and well done fight sequence to me. I really like the, what was it, the iRobot or Roomba addition to that fight sequence. I think that was very, very on point. You know, that was very, very necessary for that fight sequence to be absolutely pristine. And I liked that there was somewhat of a rematch between Loki and Hunter. I don't remember what her full name is. I think it's like B17. I could be wrong about that. I'd have to double check. And I'm very curious to know what the impact of that fight in and of itself is going to have on all the people that were taken over. Specifically, we have two TVA agents, the Hunter, I think they're both Hunters, or one of them's a Minuteman and the other one is called a Hunter or something like that. I don't know if those are actually different or if Hunter B whatever is just her name. So yeah, that's all my thoughts specifically on this female version of Loki. I do think that she's going to be remarketed or rebranded as the Enchantress. I don't think she's going to completely be said to be Loki just because she doesn't seem to like or identify with that name anymore. Maybe she'll even rename herself to Amora. We have no idea, but I think that would be really cool to see. And just her backstory is that she was once a version of Loki in the past. Let me know your thoughts on that. Do you actually think that it's feasible for this character to end up becoming the Enchantress or end up being transformed to another version of this character? Do you think that she will end up becoming part of the main MCU timeline at some point, now that it seems like a lot of branches are being created in the timeline? And do you think that Loki is going to end up really joining her? Or do you think he's going to try and double cross her? I mean, as Mobius said, you've literally stabbed people in the back like 50 times, but he did promise never to do it again. I really enjoyed this episode number 2. I'm super excited to see what comes next. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know any other thoughts that you have on this video, on this episode as well, in the comments below. And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe for more content on this channel. Thank you for watching. Bye.